Is Toronto about to pull off the ultimate addition by subtraction move, or are they simply rearranging deck chairs on a ship that's already taking on water? That's the question hanging in the winter air right now, heavy and unresolved, as the Toronto Blue Jays stare down a crossroads that could define not just the 2026 season, but the entire direction of the franchise. And trust me, this latest trade proposal is not just another rumor destined to die quietly on the transaction wire. This one has teeth. It has consequences. And it has the power to split the fan base right down the middle before the first pitch of spring training is even thrown. After watching Kyle Tucker slip through their fingers to the Dodgers and seeing Bo Bichette pack his bags for New York, the Blue Jays front office has been left standing in the wreckage of what once looked like a carefully constructed competitive window. The Bellinger reunion dream evaporated the moment he landed in pinstripes, and suddenly Toronto finds itself scrambling, not to dominate the division, but to stabilize the ground beneath its feet. Then Heavy.com drops a bombshell that detonates across social media. Anthony Santander, Nathan Lukes, Bowden Francis, and prospect Johnny King heading to St. Louis in exchange for reliever Jojo Romero and outfielder Lars Nootbaar. On the surface, it sounds outrageous. A 44-home run slugger for a setup man and a hitter who barely scraped .240 last season. The immediate reaction was predictable fury. Phones clenched. Caps thrown. Comment sections ignited. How could they even consider this? But before we all lose our heads, this is where the story gets interesting, because this trade isn't about box scores or highlight reels. It's about reality finally catching up with reputation. It's about the Blue Jays looking in the mirror and admitting that the version of Anthony Santander they paid for might no longer exist. His contract, once envisioned as a cornerstone, is starting to look less like a foundation stone and more like an anchor. He arrived in Toronto with thunder in his bat and expectations strapped firmly to his back, but injuries and inconsistency turned his season into a quiet disappointment that ended with him watching October baseball from the sidelines. The bat that once terrified pitchers became a question mark, and insiders are now openly wondering whether the deal benefits the player far more than the club. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are sitting on pieces that directly address Toronto's most glaring flaws. Jojo Romero is not just another arm drifting through the bullpen carousel. He's a reliever forged in pressure, a pitcher who has lived in the late innings and thrived there. 8 saves in 9 chances down the stretch last season isn't an accident. Over the past 2 years, his 54 holds and 9 saves place him in the same statistical neighborhood as Jeff Hoffman before Hoffman was trusted with the 9th inning in Toronto. And that comparison matters, because the Blue Jays didn't stumble into Hoffman's evolution. They identified it, nurtured it, and benefited from it. Romero feels like a familiar blueprint waiting to be reused. Then there's Lars Nootbaar, the most misunderstood piece of this entire proposal. On paper, he looks ordinary. In reality, he's a bundle of untapped potential wrapped in flawed surface numbers. His batting average doesn't dazzle, but his underlying metrics tell a very different story. Elite chase rate discipline. Top-tier hard-hit percentages. These are the kinds of traits that hitting coaches dream about, because they can't be taught. And in Toronto, Nootbaar wouldn't be left to figure it out alone. David Popkins, a man who has reshaped careers and resurrected bats, would get his hands on a 26-year-old outfielder who has already shown flashes of being more than just a role player. With Popkins' guidance, that quiet .240 could very realistically turn into a .270 hitter with 20-plus home run upside. Suddenly, the trade doesn't look so lopsided. This is where the emotional conflict sets in for fans. Are the Blue Jays giving up too early on Santander's redemption arc, or are they making the kind of cold, unsentimental decision that smart organizations make before value completely evaporates? Popkins himself has spoken about believing in Santander, about a potential vengeance tour waiting to happen. But belief doesn't pay the bills, and it doesn't protect a bullpen that collapsed too often last season. Front office priorities have shifted. This is no longer about rewarding past production. It's about building a roster that actually functions in high-leverage moments, not just looks good on paper. The bullpen situation alone makes this proposal impossible to ignore. Heading into 2026, Toronto's relief core feels fragile, patched together with hope rather than certainty. Additions have been made, yes, but none inspire the calm you need when clinging to a 1-run lead in the 8th inning. Romero does. His body of work over the last 2 seasons places him among the most reliable late-inning arms available without surrendering elite prospects. He's not a project. He's an answer. And answers are exactly what this team has lacked when games slipped away late. Of course, giving up a 44-homer bat feels reckless until you remember how far that version of Santander feels from the present reality. Injuries robbed him of rhythm, timing, and trust. Reporting has already suggested that moving his contract would require Toronto to swallow money or take back another undesirable deal. This Cardinals proposal avoids that trap entirely. By packaging Santander with Lukes, Francis, and King, the Blue Jays clear salary, relieve roster congestion, and address 2 immediate needs in one decisive move. Nathan Lukes was already being floated as trade currency. Bowden Francis, versatile as he is, isn't untouchable. Johnny King remains a lottery ticket. St. Louis gets depth, flexibility, and a potential bounce-back slugger. Toronto gets clarity. And clarity, right now, is priceless. Nootbaar's upside is where this trade quietly becomes fascinating. His 119 hits last season would have placed him among Toronto's better contributors, and his doubles and power baseline suggest room to grow. Improve the average modestly, maintain the quality of contact, and suddenly you're looking at a legitimate everyday outfielder who fits the competitive timeline rather than fights against it. Add in his defensive value, and the picture sharpens even further. Financial flexibility is the unspoken hero of this story. Santander's contract was signed when Toronto believed it was one piece away. That belief no longer exists. Moving that money opens doors, whether it's for pitching, bullpen reinforcement, or opportunistic late winter signings. Flexibility is a weapon in modern baseball, and this trade loads it with ammunition. From the Cardinals' perspective, this is a calculated gamble. Santander could rediscover his form. Lukes and Francis provide immediate depth. King adds left-handed potential. For a team reshaping itself on the fly, that's a reasonable risk. For Toronto, it's about avoiding a far greater one. So where does this leave the Blue Jays and their hopes of relevance, let alone contention? This trade isn't flashy. It won't dominate highlight shows. But it addresses structural weaknesses and mitigates long-term risk. Romero stabilizes the bullpen. Nootbaar injects youth and upside. And Santander's departure, painful as it may feel, might be the necessary step that keeps this franchise from drifting further into mediocrity. There's also a message being sent to the clubhouse. Performance matters. Potential matters. Past glory does not guarantee future security. That edge, that urgency, can change the temperature of a team that desperately needs renewed hunger. Now, before we wrap this up, this is your reminder to like the video, share it with fellow fans, and subscribe to *** the Blue Jays Report *** if you want analysis that digs deeper than the loudest headlines. This is what we do here. We question. We analyze. We debate. And that's exactly what I want from you now. Do you trust the Blue Jays to make a move like this? Do you believe Nootbaar becomes a breakout star under Popkins? Or does Santander punish Toronto with a renaissance in St. Louis? Is Romero the next Hoffman, or just another name in the bullpen ledger? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. No filters. No sugarcoating. Because trades like this don't just change rosters. They define eras. And whether you love it or hate it, this might be the moment that tells us exactly who the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be.